Hello everyone, and welcome to a commentary on LEGO Doctor Who Point of No Return. I'm joined with Alex from LFP Animations.
The man himself.
Yeah, we're back together with the dream team, here for another cool commentary. So yeah, Point of No Return, as I'm sure I've hammered on enough for quite a while now. It took 5.5 years to make.
Yeah.
So it's finally done, and obviously the two of us wrote it together way back in the day.
Yeah, summer 2013.
God, yeah.
Those were the days.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we wrote it, and obviously I've made some changes along the way, but for the most part, the integral story is still what we came up with all that time ago. Which, you know, to sustain a project for that long is. It's quite surprising in some ways that I've kept it going as long as I have, but there we go.
Very impressive.
Yeah, but yeah, all this stuff is new. The stuff in the intro here. So I thought it would be quite cool to add a bit more backstory, kind of like tie in with the greater lore and all that kind of stuff. Because originally, I think we had it start.
It was the end of time sequence, wasn't it?
Yeah,
at the start?
yeah, that was always there. But all of this stuff before it was a late edition. It came, well, not a late edition. It's funny saying a late edition because I animated this like 3 years ago, and it's yeah. The newest stuff is a lot of these CGI shots. That was probably like November. I did that because some of those shots I've gone through like 3 different iterations before I ended up with something I was happy with. Because I was very much a perfectionist with a lot of the CGI stuff, especially.
Now, you originally filmed the whole thing on your well, not the whole thing, but you did start filming on your webcam, didn't you?
Yeah. So I think I mentioned it in the Series 2 commentary, but on your channel, on the end of the multi-story, there's a little mini trailer for Point of No Return. Back from 2014 when it was all still shot on the webcam. So obviously none of that footage was used in the final product, but a lot of the shots were similar, so you can see the first versions of what I had to remake. So there's a lot of reshooting with this, which is part of why it took as long as it did. I guess one of the reasons was just footage that I did do became outdated in the case of like the webcam stuff. But then also I lost a lot of footage as well on my hard drive, so I had to redo. All the little sequence where the Doctor comes out the TARDIS for the first time into the battlefield.
I love that bit. Yes.
Thanks. Yeah. I remember in the script it was just like helicopters and lens flares and all that stuff, and that was all we wrote.
Yeah.
But I think it looked quite cool. My original idea was to do it like as one long shot, so sort of like the Doctor goes into the TARDIS, sort of arcs around and comes out. But that's way beyond my technical ability even now, after doing all this battle sequence stuff. Some of these shots came quite late in the day as well, because I changed the soundtrack for this. It was originally, I think, the soundtrack from Spectre when Bond was chasing down Blofeld on the river.
Oh, yeah.
And I changed it to be more Doctor Who-y. So it's just little things like that you don't necessarily think about that change the whole makeup of it, from like a visual and audio perspective, that kind of thing. But yeah.
This is the Master Suite, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
I love
that
this
sounds
song.
right. Yeah, a lot of the old Murray Gold stuff is really cool.
It's like that evil laugh.
Yeah. Well,
these are old recordings.
That's the thing, is all these recordings are quite old now because I locked in a lot of the mouth animations early, so I couldn't have redone them even if we wanted to, because it just would have taken so much extra time to do that. But
I did offer to do them again.
Yeah, no, I know you did. Yeah, but I think they actually came out really well, to be honest. But yeah. I do like a lot of the Murray Gold music, but I also do quite like the new Series 11 score. It's I know we have different opinions on that, but
well, the series itself we have different opinions on, but I think the music's good. Yeah.
But yeah, the music, I think like I quite like the new sort of style of it. I think it's because I think Murray Gold stuff, it is good, but you can kind of see that it is, at least towards Series 10, starting to get a little bit repetitive in some of the cues and things like that. I'd have still probably been fine with him in Series 11, but I'm glad they spiced things up and sort of, it helped, especially with the whole aesthetic change of the show, to do something a bit different with the music as well. Because some of the I'm trying to off the top of my head, the Saranga Conundrum soundtrack and the Resolution soundtrack. Well,
the Resolution was great.
Yeah. The only thing I wasn't too keen on was...
How did you pull off that shot?
Oh, that one. That was... So I built a tiny little bit of the TARDIS set, which was just like the back walls, and put that just in front of the brown base plates.
Okay.
So it was quite a tough one. The hardest part of it was getting the lights, because the sort of lights around the TARDIS were quite a late addition as well, because I had to reshoot most of the TARDIS scenes. I was very inspired by both your set and the way Matt lights his TARDIS set.
Right, yeah.
I thought that's really cool. I need to do something like that. So I added those little yellow lights around it, and I couldn't get the lights in for that shot, so they were just yellow bricks that were lit to make it look like the lights. But yeah, but the one thing I wasn't too keen on with that shot is the set kind of jumps a little bit. There's one frame missing,
right?
Because the track itself, the camera track, sort of had a little bump in it, so I had to cut it to make the track smoother. But in the process, it sort of like looks like it jolts forward a bit.
It does look fairly smooth though.
Yeah. The whole thing. I mean, there's things I changed. So like this was one of the first scenes I did overall. And there's sort of that one shot at the start of it where the camera kind of tracks around and the holograms are motion tracked to the set. I think it looks quite cool, but they're not properly motion tracked. They were done sort of literally frame by frame.
Oh God.
So it was, I'd have done it differently if I did stuff again, but for the most part I think it all relatively holds up. It's all consistent, at least. It doesn't feel like, oh, that was definitely a 2015 shot and that was definitely a 2018 shot. It feels like it's fairly cohesive, which I guess is what I wanted from it, so it wasn't too noticeable. But yeah, some parts you can tell are older than others, but that might just be me because I've been living with the footage for as long as I have. And
I mean, when I watched it, it all looked fairly consistent. So
yeah, that's good. That's
just,
good.
About that scene that just played. I think I wrote it. I think I wrote part one, and I'm not a fan of that scene. Just the writing in it, like it just feels very on the nose to me.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. Is we can pick this apart to death, but I guess at the end of the day, we kind of just have to treat it as this is what we wrote when we were a lot younger, and I guess a lot of stuff that we would do differently now, we wouldn't have done back then.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see one last bow if it ever gets made, because obviously the script for that is a lot more recent, and so a lot more, I guess, in keeping with our current sensibilities versus doing something that's
got explosions and lens flares everywhere.
Yeah, the explosions and lens flares are cool, but they lack a bit of substance, and I think that was a lot of the rewrites and the reshoots for this, was to try and add a bit of substance.
I remember originally in that scene that just played the one with the computers and stuff. I remember when I first wrote it, Seth asked, "Who are they?" and the Doctor goes, "Your worst nightmare."
Oh God,
I'm very glad you took that out, because I remember thinking, God, I hope he didn't put that in the episode.
There were some lines that I edited last minute, like literally the last things I pretty much edited. They came later in the episode because they were sort of a bit too on the nose. It was because that was, and this was stuff that I added in quite late as well. The problem was that the way I wrote them was very kind of this is what the characters are thinking, so this is what they say. And it was one line, I think it was a line I gave you at the very end, which was I'll remember it when I see it, but I cut out the second half of the line because it was just too on the nose. It was something in the vein of like everything I've ever done has been for a reason, and I kept that bit, but then the second half of the line was something like, I believe I'm doing something good for the greater scheme of the universe, or something stupid like that. So that was a very late takeaway. So there were a couple of that. I think a couple of Rassilon's lines as well, because I wrote him as, especially in the rewrites, as being very sort of formalised in the way he speaks, and sort of it didn't feel quite right. So yeah, little bits like that I took out quite late. But a lot of the stuff that was added was to try and add that substance and give it a bit of meat to the bones. So it wasn't just because I think, you know, not to toot my own horn, but visually I think it looks pretty impressive, and I'm really glad with how it's turned out on that front. But the story itself obviously lacks a little bit, and
I think the visuals make up for it.
Yeah, I like to think so.
Yeah. And you did a good job with what you had, for sure.
Oh, cheers. But yeah, I think that's the thing. I think there's a bit of give as well, because it is a fan project. So
yeah, I think a lot more forgiving, aren't they?
Yeah, if it was an actual episode of the show, I'd be like, "The hell's this? This is such a departure from everything." But the fact that it is a fan project, I think, yeah, definitely saves some points there. And I'm really glad with the reception it's had so far. It's been really impressive, and I've been just glad that people have seen it and liked it, to be honest. It's been,
I think, just for everyone that commented on the video.
I know everyone's mentioned this shot. Yeah, this was sort of,
that's great.
This was another one I read, because the first one was sort of just like a slow track in from behind, but it wasn't quite doing it for me, and I lost that one anyway. That was one of the shots I lost on the hard drive.
How did you do it?
So that was literally just built the set and spun the set itself, and so the camera's staying perfectly still.
Yeah, I did wonder if that was how you...
But it was such a pain to do, to get it exactly centred, and it wasn't precise. I did it twice. The first time it wasn't exactly centred, and the second time it still wasn't. But I shot it in high enough resolution that in After Effects I sort of just managed to track it digitally, so it looked like it was centred.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was close to what I kind of wanted from the opening TARDIS shot, in terms of just like arc around, because I think that would have looked really cool.
Yeah, upon watching the TARDIS shot again just then, I really would have loved to see that as an arc shot. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, but I think that's the kind of thing where I really would need a proper motion control rig or something to just be able to pull that off. And it's like, for the budget level we're dealing with. I mean, I guess that's the thing is, I think for like Lego Animations generally, the Americans tend to develop into doing these massive things, whereas we I can't think of a single British brick filmer that does something massive. So this is very kind of, it's a low budget thing that is trying to be big budget. I guess kind of like Attack the Block or some film like that, where it's like, you can tell the restrictions, but I'm trying to do something bigger than I could. But
it works.
Yeah, parts of it definitely. And I think I did learn a lot, especially like shots like that, where it's just learning how to green screen stuff properly and things like that. I think it's definitely a step up, and hopefully it means that I can carry on and do more stuff in the future that's of that caliber. But
Series
3, well, yeah. We'll have to see. I think I said in the Series 2 commentary that I had the ideas for it, and I guess we will have to talk about that at some point if we do try and write something else. But it's like I was saying to you the other day, it's just the fact that this project has been in the background for so long. I feel a little bit empty without it, and it's like I kind of need something in the background just to keep me going. Yeah, exactly.
Get your Lego fix.
Exactly. It's just little things like just logging on to Final Cut every week and just, you know, chipping away, making odd little changes. It's quite nice having that sort of background project that, you know, I guess we don't have at the moment. But yeah. This was another one that I remember went through a lot of reshoots to get it right, because that was just that whole little mini sequence there, establishing the Daleks and the humans. Because the first few versions I did of it were all in Final Cut, which isn't particularly designed for visual effects. So it was I kind of, and that was part of why it's taken as long as it has as well. Is waited to learn After Effects, and so I could get it close at least to what I had in my head. But of course, by that point, what I had in my head didn't matter, because it's like, oh, this is a naff story, and I just need to get it done. So I think, especially in the battle scene, there's a few shots that look a bit more rushed than others. But in the main, I think I'm glad I did it, and it's something I'm at least somewhat proud of, I think, of how it turned out.
I do like the idea of the Time Lord Genesis arc.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it was quite a neat idea we had, and I think, again, it's one of those ones that just would have been cool if it was fleshed out a bit more. Like, just, it's sort of like it's there, and then, I don't know, I feel like there's more we could have done with it, but
yeah. I think that's the case with a lot of the ideas that we had for this, because there's some really nice ideas, like the whole Seth reveal. That was, I think, a really good idea, but we just didn't particularly flesh it out, which was a shame. But
yeah, it was one that kind of, I had the idea for it quite early on, because it was alluded to back in episode 5 of series 2.
That's right, just before the multi-dots.
Yeah, so it's something that I've had the idea for a while, and then obviously when we wrote it, it's like, okay, that's it. But it should have been a more part of the story than it was, because it wasn't part of the story. This was the last scene I wrote for it, because, and I quite like this as a scene, because it was sort of, without it, it felt like there wasn't enough build up to the battle, and as well there wasn't enough stuff between the Doctor and Seth, which I think there needed to be.
You do need that calm before the storm.
Yeah. So I quite like it how it turned out. I wrote another scene as well that was that came very late in the day as well, but I never shot it, which was sort of just after the Master sentencing scene. It was the Doctor and Straxus were sat in one of the pods in the big High Council chamber, and they just had a conversation, which I thought was quite cool. But the problem, it was too kind of, it set up threads for potentially a future story, which I wasn't ready to commit to. So I was it didn't come out in the end, but. And as well, it would have been an extra thing to animate, and at that point, I think I'd had enough of it.
You have to tell me about that after.
Yeah, we'll do. But yeah, it was an interesting scene. But yeah, I think it set up too many new threads for something that happens in the last 2 minutes of what is purportedly the final episode. But there we go.
You don't want to be doing J.J. Abrams.
No, that would be bad, because I'd have no follow through with it.
Well, you've got the lens flares in, so there's a bit of JJ in there.
Oh, there's a lot of lens flares in here. The one thing that I'm not too happy about with the battle is the laser effects. I feel like they work for what they are, and I think if I'd have done anything more flashy, it would have been too... it wouldn't have looked right with the style. So I think the fact that they are a little bit cartoony kind of works.
It kind of works with the whole Lego thing. You don't want it to look too real.
Yeah. So it's... Yeah. And you can tell as well when I had a shot in mind, like the Top Gun shot there, where it's sort of like the camera's fixed on the ship. And then there are others where it's obvious that I didn't have a shot in mind, so it's sort of very flat and not very interesting to look at, but it just sort of fills the space. Because I think that was the problem as well, was I had the soundtrack, and the soundtrack for the battle scene was originally much longer, because when we wrote it there was a whole bit where...
There was a whole sequence on the moon, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a sequence on the moon. There was a sequence where one of the Dalek ships crashed on Earth, and there was a fight in amongst a big city. And
God, wow.
there was a bit more with Seth. There was a bit more with the run up to the mothership. So odd bits and pieces that I had to cut, just because A, it would have taken far too long, and B, I had no idea, especially with the moon stuff and the city stuff, I had no idea how to actually do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So it would have been cool, but it would have been literally 5 minutes long, because I think this clock's in at 2 minutes or something like that.
I don't think it really needs to be any longer. It would have.
Yeah, it gets the point across, and it looks fairly cool. So
I like the whole debris thing. Oh, that shot, lovely. I like the whole debris thing you did, though.
Yeah, that was a very Battle of the Bastardsy kind of thing.
I was going to say...
So it was I think it was the behind-the-scenes featurette where they were talking about it and the research they did into actual...
bodies piling up.
Yeah. So I was like, well, in space, that would be what would happen in a big battle like that. So I thought that was kind of neat. But obviously it's not terribly consistent. But at the same time, there's enough there to kind of give the hint of it.
Yeah. It adds some more weight to the battle, I think.
Yeah. You
can see the consequences of it.
Because I had planned to do a lot more in terms of like the layering and things like that, and maybe some of the Time Lords regenerating in the background or whatever. But at the end of the day, it was kind of like it was too many layers, and it would have taken far too long just for like a couple of pixels in the background of screen to do. So I had to drop a lot of that, which was fair enough, because as well my computer I don't think would have handled it. It's barely getting along as is now after all of this.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because I should probably upgrade it at some point soon, because I've had it for, God, literally nearly 9 years I've had that computer now, so it's seen me through thick and thin, but yeah.
I like what we did with the Doctor's character in this episode, his whole not wanting to fight thing that was going on.
Yeah.
I think it was an interesting angle.
Yeah, and then obviously changing that up a little bit with some of these scenes that sort of like it develops him a bit. I think that the one issue I have with him in retrospect is he's a very passive character. He kind of just lets a lot of things happen, which kind of works for the story. It's like the idea that this whole big battle is happening and he can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's not really true to who the Doctor is.
Yeah, he'd at least tried to stop it, I guess.
Yeah, a little bits and pieces like that would have maybe been a bit more faithful to the show. Because as is, it's not really. I mean, this whole episode isn't really Doctor Who. It's got the characters, but it's sort of its own thing, and it's probably closer to Star Wars, if anything.
Yeah, I guess so.
So yeah, that would be the one thing I think that would be the one thing in terms of the story that would really need a lot of work, is the way he's... Because as you say, I like the way we characterised him, in that he doesn't want to fight and then slowly he's drawn back into it.
Yeah.
But I think we could have maybe done it a bit in a way that he was a bit more active in the story. Because as is, the only people who kind of do anything in the story are, I guess, Davros, who attacks the humans, and Rassilon, who fights back, and then probably Seth, who chooses to engage the Daleks.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, there isn't really much in terms of what the Doctor does, or what even the Master does, because he kind of, I guess he brings the Daleks back, but he's sort of just there.
That's true. We just wanted to have him in it.
Yeah,
because the Master's cool.
The Master is cool.
And it could have been an interesting angle to maybe even have the episode focused on another character or something.
Yeah.
I know it wouldn't have been that Doctor Who-y, but if it was, Seth's story more so, it could have been interesting.
Yeah, that would have been a good way to do it. Yeah, definitely. Because as is, it kind of, like, the hints are all there, like, especially the fact that, I mean, there was a bit of a time jump, but the fact that you see Seth when he's fighting the human war with the Clamrine. So that kind of thing, yeah, that would have been an interesting way of approaching it, definitely. I think as well, we kind of have to look at it through the lens of, we designed this originally as a 50th special.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Going that far back. But through that lens, I think it kind of works in the same way the Day of the Doctor works, because it's a little bit fan servicey, kind of solves a lot of threads that were set up, but at the same time it is an okay story, but it's not like a great story. It's just sort of there, if that makes any sense at all.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Like, it's not necessarily designed to be a great story. It was designed as sort of a 50th special, because originally I was planning on doing a series 3. That was way back when, in 2013. Yeah, God, that's a while ago now.
Yeah. As in, were you planning on doing that before Point of No Return?
No, I planned on doing it after Point of No Return.
Okay.
But the plans were before Point of No Return, before we. So that was how I kind of saw it going, with Series 2 and then the multi-story, and then Point of No Return as a special, and then Series 3.
We wrote the multi-doctor story after Point No Return.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, we did.
Right.
Because I remember I was like, hey, I don't know if you're going to want to do this because you've got this massive episode to do. But,
yes, I remember this.
We were talking about a multi-doctor story. Do you want to do it?
Yeah. I guess that, because as a story itself, that was more kind of, it fitted well in your universe, and for my Doctor's character, it's kind of just a little side adventure. So I think, in that sense, as the chronology of it works, I think Series 1 to Multi-Doctor, Point of No Return, then Series 3 would have been the way I would have done it. But, of course, this took 5.5 years, so that's a no. But yeah, Davros is dead for good now. Until he comes back in the next one.
Series 3, Episode 1, The Return of Davros.
Without any explanation at all, he's just back as business as usual.
Yeah.
This was the scene I was on about earlier, where it was a little bit kind of ham-fisted in some of the dialogue. Yeah. It's kind of like, I think it, as a reveal, it would have worked quite well, but I don't know. Like there are things we could have written differently, and as well, I think part of my shortcoming was sort of writing some of those scenes without consulting you or anything, just sort of doing.
Yeah, because we planned it, and then we went off, and I wrote what was going to be part 1, and you wrote what was going to be part 2, and then we just you just put them together, didn't you?
Yeah, well, that was something that we haven't really talked about. Was that originally, it was going to be a 2-parter, and the reason I think really that never happened was because part 2 was becoming so bulky compared to part 1.
Yeah, it was wasn't it 2 or 3 times the length or something?
Yeah, it was something mad like that, because the original cut-off point for part 1 was God, I'm trying to think. I think it was that arc shot of the Doctor in the meeting room, and that was going to be the end of part 1.
No,
and then part 2 starts when they're on the hilltop and they say goodbye to the president. And so that would have been like 10 minutes to 20 minutes, or 5 minutes to 20 minutes, or something daft like that at that time. So I think it works better as one long story. But I think the problem as well then is the first half is very kind of like a lot happening, and I guess it's kind of the same problem of something like Rogue One, where there's a lot happening in the first half and you kind of struggle to get your bearings, and then it slows right down and it's sort of like all in one spot for the second half. So I guess the Rogue One comparison is kind of apt in that sense.
I think this does a better job than Rogue One, though. Rogue One just felt like a complete mess.
But Rogue One's a funny one, because the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, okay. And it has grown on me since, and there's parts of it I really like. I really like director Krennic. He's one of my favourite parts. So that's partly because I really like Ben Mendelsohn. He's one of my favourite actors at the moment. But the whole thing. I mean, obviously the Battle of Scarif is cool, but
the whole third act I think is great. But
I think that's the problem. Is they're kind of like the characters. I know it's been done to death, this criticism, but the characters aren't particularly interesting. They're just kind of there.
They aren't particularly characters.
It's like they could have done a lot more with it, but we got what we got.
Was this just a really big set?
This was. I think I cheated it to make it look bigger than it was, because this was.
It's massive.
Yeah, it was 2 base plates. But I used literally like all of my bricks on it, and it was quite I put the camera down quite low and cheated it to make it look like the walkway was sort of hovering a bit. By masking out the support, so it looked quite cool. That was another one, because the original set I had for that was really naff. It was sort of like all one colour, and then just
I remember seeing pictures
one
of that,
plate of
on Flickr or something.
Yeah, I think it's probably still on Flickr. I've not checked Flickr in ages.
Flickr's a bit dead.
Yeah. But I like the idea of having the light beams and the shafts of light coming through, and it's very.
That's the End of Time hallway, isn't it?
Yes, that's what it was inspired by, definitely. Yeah, here we go for the big twist. I'm glad I managed to find that music cue again, though, because I think that worked really well.
That was great, yeah.
And I think that was one of the things, because a lot of the stuff I added late with the music, as I was saying earlier, was the extra Doctor Who music.
Mm.
So in some of the scenes, like the scene before in the TARDIS when it was the Doctor and the Master having their little kind of standoff, I think that was a track from Deep Breath.
Right. Okay.
Sort of in the background.
No. Yeah, I remember. I remember that song.
Yeah, it's just little things like that that just sort of make it feel a bit more like Doctor Who. Because, as I say, it's so far removed from the show at this point that it's kind of like I needed something to ground it with it, other than just the imagery of the sonic screwdriver or the TARDIS or whatever.
Yeah.
And as well, sort of in this little montage at the end, just going back and tying up all the loose threads, which is probably not the best way. Like, this could have been a whole scene of itself. And I think, in hindsight, yeah, it should have been. But
it makes sense to someone who's seen Series 1, but
yeah,
like, at this point...
Who's seen Series 1, yeah, that's the problem. So that was part of the rationale for doing the commentaries at the... before this came out, to try and, if people hadn't seen Series 1, but obviously no one watched the commentaries either, so it's fine. It's fine. To be honest, they're not too bad, because at least they're easy enough to make, and it's just the channel lives for a little bit longer. It's just sort of clawing away, just desperately trying to survive. So little videos like this, just keeping it going on. It's the kind of thing that I probably in the past would have put on the second channel, but I can't get into the second channel now.
Really?
It's maddening. It's because I can't remember the email or something else. But yeah, this is something Tom mentioned in the comments for this, is that the explanation for his regeneration isn't necessarily obvious.
Yeah, I mean, I'd actually forgotten what we wrote in the script, and I wasn't sure either.
Yeah, it was when he got lightning bolted by Seth, and that should have been. I should have shot that differently and added in a few extra shots of him really struggling on the ground or something. And because I had it in my head, it was all going to be that one shot, that wide shot, and that was the whole action.
Right.
But in Lego, obviously, you can't really show the character suffering as much unless you do it with editing and show it in close up or whatever. So yeah, I'd have done that differently, because as it is, it's kind of like, oh, he just randomly regenerates. Because and we never established like how powerful the Master is in terms of his electricity and stuff like that.
I don't think even the show does.
No, the show doesn't either. So it's kind of like, and then they just ditch it entirely when he regenerates into Missy. And
yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a good thing. The Master is a bit of a weird one.
I agree.
And I haven't used it myself, but
yeah, it's definitely a weird power, and I think it's one of those ones as well that when we think back on it, it was one of those cool parts of his character that was sort of just very surface level, and it's now I think we have a better appreciation for him as a more well-rounded character, rather than just, oh, he shoots lightning and he's a bad guy, or he's so cool. But yeah, that was Point of No Return.
It was. I just wanted to say about the Seth Master reveal. I was going to comment on it at the time, like, oh, that's clearly inspired by Smith movies, but actually we wrote this before his final episode came out. That was
my worry, was especially when The Last Stand did come out, there were a lot of parallels to what we'd written, especially like the big battle sequence and bringing the Time Lords back and all that kind of thing. So I was a bit concerned that people might draw that parallel, but I think the fact that it's out so late compared to it,
I think a lot of people have just forgotten at this point.
Yeah, and I think as well there isn't as much audience overlap, because The Last Stand has done really, really well. I'm really pleased it did do as well as it did, because it's like lots of people have seen it. But I think this has come out, unfortunately, at a time where the Lego Doctor Who community has moved on pretty much. So it's kind of like, I'm glad I finished it, and I'm glad it's out there, and it does feel like a weight off my chest. But at the same time, I can't help but wonder if I'd have cracked on and finished it a few years ago, would the Doctor Who community still be around, Lego Doctor Who community still be around, and would it still have that kind of effect? I don't know.
There's still some people around. It's just smaller than it used to be, which is a shame. But
yeah, well, it's all on you now, man. You've got to finish yours for the good of the community.
Might be a couple of years, I'm afraid.
That's fine. It's fine. So long as you get it done. Honestly, I think I would really, really love to see it realised.
Summer holidays are coming up. So
Yeah, it's a perfect time for it. And then
Yeah.
I'll start, because I'm mad. I'll just write another one, and then we'll see where we go from there. But yeah, before we sign off, I just want to say thank you all for watching, and,
Yeah, thank you.
honestly, thanks for the reception to Point of No Return. It's been genuinely much better than I ever thought it would have been, and I'm just really pleased that so many of you have seen it and liked it. So yeah, anything else you'd like to add, Alex, before we head off?
I mean, nothing other than just echoing what you said. Obviously I didn't, film any of the episode, but like I just appreciate all the feedback for, the writing and everything else as well.
Yeah,
Definitely. That's all I've got to say, really.
But yeah, hopefully we do come up with some more stuff, and we can keep it going, because it is kind of that thing that I can't imagine not animating at this point. No. It's like, it'd be quite nice to keep going with in some form or other. But yeah, I'm glad that it's done, and I'm glad people have liked it. So yeah, we'll leave it there then. Cool. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.